Okay, we are back from our break, and I'm certainly ready to start our Chris Farley interview. Dr. Rob, is Chris Farley with us now?
Yes, Billy, he is. We have been in communication since this morning. I actually spoke to him while I was in the shower right prior to the show, and I look forward to giving a message from Chris this evening.
Hey, Chris, I'd like to ask you, did you complete everything you wanted to in this lifetime?
What I get from him, Billy, is that he is very happy that he was able to come here at this time. It was an exciting life for him. He said that he was running a race against time. He said that from an early age he always felt like he was going to die early, and so he kind of was prepared to take his crossing at the time that he did, even though he was, I think, in his 30s, from what I can see from him as far as his spirit in the spirit world. He definitely had that sense that he was done. You know, it was like almost like a marathon for him from the time he was born until the time he died. He never stopped, and he was kind of out of breath at the end of it all, and just felt like it was time for sure.
Well, that's good to know. And Chris, tell us about growing up in Madison, Wisconsin. What was it like in that part of the country?
What he told me that it was just small town America. You know, even though he said it was a larger city, it was, you know, definitely a very rural area for him. He was, you know, had a lot of experiences with farm animals. There was a lot of different, you know, activities that were there. You know, as far as, you know, living in the rural life. He said that it was a perfect place to grow up for him. He had a really conservative family, definitely, you know, had the right upbringing as far as he was concerned, and it gave him kind of a grounding to the rest of his life.
What did you enjoy most about growing up in the Catholic Church?
Really, for him, growing up, Catholic was really just like anything else. He said that it really didn't give him any sense of peace. He was always in fear of God, you know, from his experience with the church. He was very happy when he got to the other side to see that things were not exactly as they were taught. And that was one of the things, even at the end of his life, he was always that concern of balancing good and evil, he said, and that was kind of, you know, where he lived his life. He said, you know, at the end of his life, he had a lot of problems, and he kind of, you know, felt like God had turned his back on him. And when he crossed to the other side, he realized that that wasn't really the case. I want to just make a little side note here. As, you know, Chris was talking to me, you know, now he was talking about his lifestyle, and he said that at the end of his life he was very paranoid. He felt like everybody was out to get him all the time. He said that, you know, he would see people that were, you know, not there, and they were kind of, you know, these hallucinations were driving him, you know, to the brink of his passing. And, you know, for him personally, that was one of the nightmares of his crossing.
And that had to do with his drug use?
He said not only because of the drug use, but because he had something going on within the chemicals in his brain. There was kind of an aneurysm there that they had not discovered, and it was kind of causing a miswiring, and it was one of the reasons why he was using so many drugs, was to kind of counteract all these visions and all these different things that he was experiencing.
And if, say, he was aware of this condition at the time and did seek help, would he have been able to continue to lead a normal life and be the funny person that he was?
He said there would have to have been a major operation there, and he would not have been the same. You know, and for him personally, he was very much appreciative of his own work, as well as people appreciating his work. And for him, that would have been worse than death itself.
Okay, I understand. Now, I'd like to ask Chris, did you know where your career path would be taking you in the early years when you're back in high school and working as a camp counselor at Red Arrow Camp?
He said that, you know, his job as camp counselor, he was always in charge of comedy night, or he called it comedy night. He was, you know, the skits they put on for the kids, but he calls it a comedy hour. It was Chris Farley's comedy hour, and he was definitely in charge of that activity, and that was one of his highlights as camp counselor. But he also liked working with kids. You know, he was very patient, he said, and had that within him to try to help the next generation. He said later in his career, he was always, you know, there for the interns and always trying to give, you know, the youth the information and just kind of passing on his legacy.
That reminds me, a lot of people refer to him himself as the Chris Farley Show. You know, like just him. He's so funny all the time that they refer to him as the Chris Farley Show. When did you get that nickname?
He said that it was really with his family. You know, he kind of just entertained them from the time he was like 5 or 6. You know, he was always entertaining at the family parties, and they would call him, and he would do these little shows, he said, and he would charge admission, you know, like 50 cents admission to the neighbor kids to come see the Chris Farley Show, and he would just like fall around all over the place and just act like an idiot, and people paid 50 cents to see it, and that for him was the beginning.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. I'd like to move on to my next question. Chris, was Lorne Michaels a good friend to you?
At the beginning, yes, but he said that, you know, towards the end of his time there on Saturday Night Live, you know, he felt really used and abused, and for him personally, it was, you know, bittersweet to have this guy come in and be like a father to him, you know, a father figure to him, and then he felt really betrayed by Lorne Michaels, to be honest with you. That's what he's saying to me. He said, you know, betrayal is the big word that he used there.
Okay, and was SNL your most enjoyed work, or did you enjoy stand-up, improv, and Chicago's Second City Theater better?
He said that Saturday Night Live is a great gig, is what he calls it. But he said that the actual, you know, improv is much more fun for him. He said, you know, not working with the professional atmosphere, much more laid back. He could kind of, you know, let it go and be himself, and he really enjoyed that. You know, one of the side notes to this, he says, is that, you know, even though he was a comedic actor and known for his comedy, he was really sad inside. You know, he was very depressed at times, and he was always trying to make everybody else laugh to make himself feel better. He said when he helped other people, it really made him feel good personally, and it kind of gave him, you know, ability to, you know, project his sorrow into happiness for others, and that was one of the greatest joys that he had in his life.
That's really cool. And I'd like to ask, what was it like being one of the bad boys of SNL back in the day?
He said that, you know, it was, you know, definitely not an honor that he, you know, wishes to recognize at this time. Obviously, you know, the use of drugs and alcohol and other things, you know, kind of led to his crossing. But he did say that, you know, it was fun. It was fun to be part of the club. You know, at the time, he thought, you know, SNL was the top his career would ever be, and he never thought about doing movies or anything like that. He kind of just thought, hey, you know, I can show up on a Saturday and I can do my 1.5 hours, you know, and be done with the week. But he didn't realize how much work actually goes into that show. When he first took the gig, he thought, oh, wow, you know, this is a lot of money for nothing. And then when he started working, he realized how much, you know, physical pain it would be as well. I mean, he did a lot of physical comedy. He said that caused a lot of injuries that people just didn't know about, and he kind of just, you know, went on with his day. He said also with his back, it was a very big problem for him, especially at the end of that his stint on Saturday Night Live with having to do so many physical comedy sketches in a row that it just would, you know, leave him in bed for most of the week.
I see. So did he ever break anything, or was it mainly muscle issues?
Vertebrae problems, muscle issues, you know, strained muscles. He said that, you know, he was always overweight, and that didn't help, you know, his situation. You know, as I'm sitting here, he's flashing that skit. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Down by the River. And, you know, I have been hearing that all day long for, like, the last couple of days, because I think we talked about doing him about 4 or 5 days ago. And, you know, when I first thought of him, that was the first thing, and all day long it's been playing over my head.
Yeah, in fact, that leads me to my next question is, Chris, how did you enjoy living down by the river?
He said he actually knew someone that they based that sketch on. It was actually one of his ideas. And he said that, you know, there was this guy who lived down by the river, and he was kind of the bum of the city, and he was like a hobo, if you want to call it that, he said. And, you know, it was kind of really fun to be able to go back to his childhood and some of the memories that he had there, and to actually, you know, put this into a comedic form. But he said that, you know, during that skit, he shows himself to me in the picture in my head, him crashing on that table, and he said that really hurt. And I asked that question myself just now, and I'm like, did it hurt? He goes, that really hurt. He goes, we had to do that in rehearsals like 3 times, and every time he was like in a serious pain. He said that was really difficult at the time. It got time to actually do the actual skit itself on live. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do it. He said that really he was bruised up, his ribs were bruised. Everything was bruised. He was like, oh, man, I have to fall again. And he said he always went balls out. That's the word he used, balls out on everything. He said he never really wanted to disappoint the audience, no matter what the cost was to him personally.
So was that his favorite comic sketch? Or if it wasn't, what was his favorite comic sketch?
He said he enjoyed that one especially. That was really, the top for him. It was the one he said that most people remember of him. But he said he did so many that were, great sketches that, if you had to pick one, he said that would be the one. And I think that's the reason why he keeps playing them. Like, Chris, come on, stop. I've got the point out now. Let's move on to another vision. I can only see him fall on that table so many times before I start feeling it myself.
Okay. And I wanted to ask him what was his favorite movie role, and I know he did celebrity voice impressions. What was his favorite celebrity voice impression?
I really, when I see him as a ninja. I see him as a ninja. He said that, he was always a spiritual guy, and that kind of just, matched all of him together, and it was just, for him, he always liked Jackie Chan movies. He was one of his heroes. And he said that, to be able to, kind of do an impression of that style and yet make it funny was just a dream come true. He said that, martial arts were always something he was interested in, even though he never had the real time to pursue it. It was something he wanted to pursue. And he said that during that movie he was actually able to fulfill and live out his dreams of working in martial arts. So, it's kind of a combination of the spiritual, and everything else combined.
The movie Beverly Hills Ninja and the movie Black Sheep were both nominated for MTV's Music Awards for Best Comedic Performance. Do you think they should have won these nominations?
For him personally, he says that it was only his popularity that made those movies. He said that, he thought they were crap, and, really, he said another word, but I'll just use the word crap.
See, I thank him for his honesty. What does he think, Chris, what do you think of the sequel to Beverly Hills Ninja titled Dancing Ninja, with Lucas Grabeel taking over the lead role, with David Hasselhoff starring and performing the song Dancing Ninja on the soundtrack?
He said that Lucas is a great actor. He was happy that he was able to fulfill, where he left off. He said that when he was alive, they actually pitched him on the script. They actually were making some plans to actually do that, and things came up, and the way the production, run in Hollywood, sometimes it's 3 to 5 years before it's developed. And he said that he regretted not being able to play the role himself. He would love to have followed up. But, to be honest with you, he said that with David Hasselhoff, not that they have anything to be sick about on the other side, but he's actually showing him putting his finger down his throat. Is kind of the way I'm seeing when we're talking about David Hasselhoff. I personally like the Hoff, Knight Rider, really cool, all that. But according to what I'm getting from Chris, definitely could have chosen a different star for sure. Interesting.
And my next question for Chris is, what was it like to interview Paul McCartney?
He said, "What the hell are you talking about?"
That's what I thought. The SNL skit where he interviews his idol Paul McCartney and asks him various different unimportant questions.
Once again, he's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" No, he repeated it. He's really very funny. This is like one of the best experiences I've had contacting the spirit world. I'm very happy that we chose him. I think I'll be laughing for a couple of days, and hopefully he'll stay with me for a while and can give me some more personal information. It's one of the reasons why I love doing these, because the spirits always pop up a few days before and hang out a couple of days after. It's like a house guest. They won't leave. You finally have to tell them, "Okay, I'm done. I heard enough. Okay, it's time to move on." And but with him personally, I think that he has a lot to offer. So I'm looking forward to that. But with that particular interview, he said that he couldn't help but laugh. He said that he did the rehearsals, he busted up. He would say, make everyone laugh, because he said that he would just make up different stuff every time, and nothing was ever the same. He said, and when it came down to the finals, he said that no one knew exactly what was going to come out of his mouth, and they were all watching him from backstage to see exactly what was going to come out. And he said it was classic. It was classic for him. It was very enjoyable to try to torture Lorne Michael because he wasn't sure what he was going to say.
And, of course, that was a live show, and for that must have been very difficult for Paul McCartney not to laugh, too.
He said that Paul was very, very staunch the whole time. He's very, very British. You know, he said that he was trying to bust him up, and he said that, on the last day of the dress rehearsals, he finally got a laugh out of him, and he said he started asking him about, John Lennon and some personal things about John Lennon and their close relationship and their close friendship, and are they how close were they, and that finally made him laugh.
That is really funny. My next question for Chris is, Chris, who is around you? What other crossover souls do you hang with or are you frequently around?
Well, as I was touching in with him prior to the show, I actually, and sometimes in the shower I get most inspired, and I always make them stand on the outside of the shower curtain. I don't really like the idea of knowing that they can actually see me in the shower, but it seems like that's where they tend to visit me the most, and very comfortable at times, but I get through it. But I actually saw him with Phil Hartman. And the two of them were very close, almost like brothers, he said. They had a lot in common, and it was very sad for him, at Phil's passing, to, have to witness that. And for him, that was, bittersweet to be with his friend, but at the same time, Phil is definitely in a healing process. That's what I'm going to say about Phil. I really have a feeling that maybe in a future show we may be able to contact him personally. I really just want to thank him for appearing. I was thinking about him, wondering myself about him, wondering where he was, at on as far as his progression. And because of his tragic death, he says that, this is not a time for him to rebuild his energy. So we're going to revisit Phil Hartman in the show. But the basic message I think that I'm getting from Phil is, one of trying to find peace. And I think that's, what we can all hope for on the other side.
I see. So Phil Hartman's a little disappointed, needs to regain his energy. Next question for Chris is, do you have a message for your loyal fans?
Keep watching. Keep making me money. He said that his family has really benefited from him in so many ways, and he hopes that his comedy is out there for another 100 years. And I told him, I personally said to him just now, I believe that's possible. He's one of those classic stars. I think that will be around for, at least that amount of time.
Well, that's really great. And I'd like to ask him to tell us a little bit about the Chris Farley Foundation.
He said it's about helping people, and with this foundation, it's really what's benefiting most from his work. He set it up in a way that the majority of the money that's being generated from his, projects are definitely going towards this foundation. The foundation itself, I keep seeing children connected to this, and so I'm assuming I didn't do any research prior to this, but that's what I'm seeing. So I know that was kind of like him giving back, and I think that he never really had that family life that he wanted, and for him personally, this is a way to extend it out.
I see. I thank Chris Farley for coming to our show, and one last question I'd like to ask him what he thinks of our show.
He says, "You want to be honest, or you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or you want me to be honest?" And I think this is his way of joking with me, of course. He said it's really not his type of show. For him, there's a lot of entertaining moments, he said, in our show, and I think it must be popular on the other side because all these stars keep telling me about how great our show is, and I'm like, Pat, you thought of a question to ask Chris, during the last call, and you were kind of whispering to me, and I was like, wait, let me finish the call first, and we'll get to your question.
Well, yeah, I remember there was kind of a rumor, and I think I even saw it on, kind of a urban legend type show about a death script that allegedly, I guess, John Belushi had considered playing this role and read the script, and it called for kind of a heavier set, kind of jolly, comedian type, and he died. then I think John Candy had entertained and read the script, the idea of doing it, and passed on. And I'd heard that, you were possibly entertaining the idea of taking on this script, and I think you had read it prior to your passing. And I think even Morgan Freeman had read the script, and it wasn't long ago he was almost nearly killed in an accident that was really bad. Was there anything to that, or was that just a bunch of hype?
It was a bunch of hype. It was just all a lot of coincidences connected together, but it definitely made for tabloid stories. He said that the tabloids love that kind of crap, and really for him it was funny. He said that speaking of tabloids, he would see all kinds of things in the tabloids about himself, and he knew he made it at the point when National Enquirer was running stories on Chris Farley. And he said, how could such an unimportant person make national news? And so for him, it was always a very enjoyable time for him to go to the grocery store and actually see himself on the actual newsstand.
Okay, I mean sometimes there's something to it, but that one I just kind of wondered. It just seemed a little hokey, so that clears that one up. Thanks.